Tur Beis Yosef, Orach Chaim, Taf Kuv Chav Zayin. Okay, we did the first three seifim with Beis Yosef, and then we read the next four seifim, and we didn't do the Beis Yosef on them. So we're on Taf Kuv Chav Zayin. This is the siman on Eruv Tavshilin. We did the seif on Bishul B'Yom Tov, which is really, you got to know that so that you'll know what you are or are not allowed to do. So right now we are on Taf Kuv Chav Zayin. So maybe since not all of you were here, at least what we'll do is we'll run through the tour again very quickly from Seif Dalid, Taf Kuv Chav Zayin, Seif Dalid. All right, and there are going to be a couple of interesting things that come up that are Lamaisa. We don't use it, but it's interesting to know how to learn Pshat since we're doing this also for Lumdus, not just for Halacha Lamaisa. So let's open up Dalid. Tzarich Shia Tavshil Roi L'Lapid Bo Et Hapat Lafuke Daisa. We saw this in the Gemara. We saw this in the Gemara that the Eruv has to be cooked food and not bread and bread. And therefore, it's got to be something that I eat with bread. Okay? Umiu kol minei tavshil tzli shaluk mevushal roy lekach. Any kind of cooked food, even if it's boiled, even if it's roasted. Okay, we even saw that if it's salted. Okay, so you know what? If we're doing it like that, let's do the Beis Yosef on these couple of things because we're only going to see a couple of the Beis Yosefs here. So in Dalid, Sarich sheha tavshil roy lehavei bo tapat lefuke daisa. And there's going to be one interesting question at the very end of this Beis Yosef. Sham Gemara ikatrei lishne upaskua poskim kelishna basra shuhu. If you remember, there were two different opinions whether you could use daisa or you can't use daisa. Amar Rabbi lo shanu el tavshil aval pat lo my timer midi de melafet ba'inen upat lo melafet v'daisa nami lo melafta the Amar Rabbi Zera hani bavloi tipshoy de'achle nahama benahama pirush Rashi de melafet. In other words, it's silly to eat cream of wheat with bread. And therefore, you can't use that as your tavshil because it's like pat. Liftan ba'inan, meaning something that's normally eaten with bread. Why do I need that? Demuchacha milsa shasui l'shabbos. Okay, because why? Pat lo malafet. Because pat is not muchach that you do it for Shabbos because you do that every day. Hilkach. So you need to do something that you're showing that I'm cooking. I'm doing this for Shabbos. Because of Rav Magid, here's an interesting halacha. Kol shekain peiros dilo upashadu. Can I use bread and an apple? So what is your reaction? What?
An apple isn't even cooked.
No, we don't need it to be cooked. We need it to be milafet, that's a pot. So it's not because it's not cooked, but it's because it's not something that you would normally eat with bread, certainly in those days.
Well, fruit is not normally eaten with bread. Otherwise, you would have to make a separate bracha on it by definition.
So again, that's why you can't use it.
But I thought it has to be cooked. I thought that we just got through saying that it has to be cooked.
It has to be roy lelafit vo et apat. And therefore, I'll just show you. Take a look. There's a little base there. If you jump down to the Darchei Moshe. A one-line Darchei Moshe. Ayin lekaman de yitboyer de yotzim beferot amevushalim.
So if you make a compote, that's good?
That's, again, there is such an opinion. There is such an opinion. Okay, that the compote could be used because it's cooked. But again, the question is, are we malafet at a pot? I don't know. I mean, I can just tell you that we Litvaks always eat our compote and our applesauce with challah and bread. Just like that's the way we do it. Again, part of it probably came from the idea we want to avoid the suffix about the bracha. But it's an interesting thing. Again, lemaisa, when we get to the halacha, we don't do it like that. We do a piece of fish, a hard-boiled egg, something that's really cooked. We don't use applesauce. Okay, but I thought that would be interesting to see. All right, we're going to skip hay, and we're going to go to, there's a Garsin and Tuba Yerushalmi. Okay, this is before we get to the next Siman Sif in the tour. We have on the next page that that Garsinim tu b'Yerushalmi. Now, who perka? Okay, so this is an interesting question because this idea of tavshil, as Pinchas keeps emphasizing, it needs to be a tavshil, okay? But it needs to be a tavshil so that it's eaten in the way that we normally eat it. And we're going to indirectly touch on the issue of bishul akum. Because if you know that there's no bishul akum on something that is normally eaten without cooking. So look what he brings the Yerushalmi. It's in Garsinan. It's on the next page. It's before the Vav. Garsinan b'Yerushalmi be'hu pirka. Kol ochel shehu nechal kemot shehu chai, meaning if I eat it without cooking, ein bo mishum bishulei goyim, v'yotzim bo mishum eruv tavshilin. So it says here that if it is a food that I would normally eat raw, then I can use it for eruv tavshilin. It doesn't have to be cooked. In other words, the idea that since I don't normally cook it, it therefore doesn't have bishul akum if it's cooked. And therefore, if it's not normally cooked, I can use it even without cooking. The Kosvu Haran Besof Tainis, the Mordechai Behilchos Tishabov, the Chen Kosov Hagos Maimonides B'Shem Smad, Perakei Mehilchos Tainios. Yotze, here's the language, and this is exactly our kompot. Yotzim betapuchim mevushalim mishum eruv tavshilin kiremuchach beyushalmi dinadar. In other words, since I'm cooking it, it's being cooked. And therefore, once I cook it, then for sure I could use it for eruv tavshil, and that's what they're saying. Again, we don't do it, but you should know. But if you're in a pinch and you have some apple, you have kompot, that according to this you would be allowed to use it along with your pot. Okay, remember we're poskening that you need pot and tavshil, and this could function as the tavshil. Okay, let's see now. This is going to be a little complicated because it's not exactly clear. It's a little bit ambiguous here in a few different directions, but we did talk about this when we learned the Gemara. And let's see now, Vav. Afilu adashim shenishu b'shulei hakedera v'shamnunis shenidbek b'sakin goro v'somechalav. So if you remember that, we talked about Rashi said, let's see right away into the Beis Yosef, because he brings the Rashi, but then there's a whole big machlokas what Rashi meant. Meaning you cook beans and you scooped up all the beans and there's a little bit left at the bottom of the pot. So you're allowed to rely on that for your eruv tavshilin. And it's not clear, what does it mean rely on? So we always learn pshat relying on it is that there's some beans at the bottom of the pot and you can designate that as your eruv tavshilin. That seems pretty pashut. Why wouldn't you be able to do that? At the end of the day, I've got some beans. Right, just like we don't require that the gefilte fish you pull out of the jar had to have been cooked for Shabbos, why shouldn't I be allowed to why shouldn't I be allowed to rely on the beans at the bottom of the pot after I scooped out all the beans and there's a little beans left? Why can't I designate for my eruv tavshilin?
Well, so number one, it's not really tavshil that you designated lechatchila, and two, is there a kazait there?
Yeah, that's for sure. It has to be a kazait. That's possible. It says that explicitly. But wait a minute. You said I didn't designate it or I didn't cook it for Yantiv?
You didn't cook it as well, you didn't cook it for the kavanah that would be your eruv tavshilin.
Did you ever use a jarred gefilte fish for your eruv tavshilin?
No, I usually use eggs.
Eggs that you cooked for Shabbos or just a hard-boiled egg you had in the fridge?
No, a hard-boiled egg that I cooked to be used on Shabbos at Suda Shlishis.
Ephraim, did you ever pull out a hard-boiled egg you had in the fridge to use for eruv tavshilin? Or did you only use eggs that you stood over the fire an hour or 2 hours before Yom Tov and cooked them for Shabbos?
Sorry, I was on mute. What was the question? Did I ever use it?
Did you ever? You had some hard-boiled eggs in the fridge that you cooked on. You cooked at the beginning of the week, and you pulled one of those hard-boiled eggs out of the fridge that you had, and you used that for eruv tavshilin.
No.
You always cook an egg on eruv Yom Tov for the eruv tavshilin?
Well, you have to set it aside, eruv Yom Tov.
No. I didn't talk about designation. Of course, you have to designate. I want to know whether the cooking had to be for Yom Tov, for Shabbos.
I'd have to ask my wife. I don't know.
Did you ever use gefilte fish from a jar?
No.
Anybody? Okay.
What, for tavshilin or just eat it?
No, for the tafshil. There's bread and a piece of gefilte fish from the jar.
In other words, Erev Yom Tov, you have in your mind that jar of gefilte fish is sitting in the cupboard. That's going to be your Erev Tavshilin.
No, you don't have it in mind. You have to take it and designate it. But But again, can I designate something that wasn't explicitly cooked for Shabbos, or it has to be explicitly cooked for Shabbos?
I'm sure that if you're designating that jar of gefilte fish, it wasn't cooked in the factory of the Eruv Tavshilin.
Excellent. So now, therefore, if you agree with that, then why is there a chiddush that if I had some beans left over in the bottom of the pot and I designated them for Eruv Tavshilin, of course it works.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So that's going to be the question. What are we talking about? So let's go again. Read it. Let's go back into the Beis Yosef. Afilu adashim shenishu b'shulei kedera v'shamnu nishinidu k'sakin gororo v'somech alavu v'vachio b'kezayis. Pashut, the Perek Beis. Upirush Rashi sheb'shulei kedera. So why isn't it pashut? What's the chiddush? What was your default? Shenisharu below miskavein. Somech aleim erev yom tov l'shem eruv. And here's the chiddush. What was the default? That loch shivi ubatle. And the chiddush is no, you can be somech on it, and it's not batal. But now, kasav amordechai, pirush Rashi, somech aleim erev yom tov v'lo biyom tov atzmo. What does that mean? Chen pirush ri, ditzorech lahatnot me erev yom tov v'lomar. The following, and I'm going to explain to you what's going on here. He has to say, im eshkach lasot eruv tavshilin. So he scraped the pot. There's a little beans left. He's not designating those beans as Eruv Tavshilin. He's saying in the event that I forget to make a real Eruv Tavshilin, i.e. with food that I'm cooking for Shabbos, esmoch al zeh tavshil, ol shamnunis al zeh hanigdar min hasakin. Vashvein and Rabbi Chia dehodetan ose tavshil. The lashon was ose tavshil on Erev Yom Tov for Shabbos. So that sounds like you have to do the cooking on Erev Yom Tov, that what you're doing has to be cooked for Shabbos. Hani mili lekatchila. So this is interesting. Ideally, it seems like almost instinctively, when you make that hard-boiled egg for Shabbos, that's very good. All right? When you pull out the egg, the gefilte fish from the jar, that's not as good. Aval b'di'eved hecha deshachach avdina kerepirish ri derushalmi ikaplukta. Here's the question: Tzarich lahatnot me'erev Yom Tov. The ikaman damar ain't tzarich lahatnot me'erev Yom Tov. What does it mean you don't have to make? What do you mean you don't have to be matna on Erev Yom Tov? So here's the point. What about if I have food left that I cooked for Shabbos, but I didn't designate that as the Eruv Tavshilin, Erev Yom Tov? So I'm sitting with food cooked on Thursday for Shabbos without designating it Erev Tavshilin. What we're going to say is on Yom Tov, you're going to be able to designate it. You can designate it on Yom Tov as long as you had it cooked before Yom Tov, and you didn't designate it, but it was cooked for Shabbos. That's good enough. All right. The Ika demand Damar ain't tzarich lahatnot me'erev Yom Tov gam al zeh somach harash mivurnik v'hitir lismoch aleim biyom tov atzmo below t'nai mishum debishel sofrim holach achar hamekel. So there's an issue whether I can even be designated on Yom Tov without having designated it before Yom Tov. As long as
does that require having cooked it for Shabbat?
You had to cook it for Shabbos. Yes,
you had to have been really cooked.
You can't on Yom Tov pull out a piece of fish from the jar, right, and say, okay, this is my Eruv Tavshilin, right? Which was prepared before Shabbos, before Yom Tov for Shabbos. But if you had food that you didn't designate it as your Eruv Tavshilin, but it was cooked. It was cooked. It was left over. It was there. So then it could be that what we're saying is you cooked food for Yom Tov, and you had some left over. Now you want to use it for Shabbos. You can designate that on Yom Tov as that's part of my Eruv Tavshilin. That's not the ideal, but that's b'di'evet, and that's the chiddush of this. That's the chiddush of these beans at the bottom of the pot. The chiddush of the beans at the bottom of the pot is that you could even use them on Yom Tov to make Eruv Tavshilin, to designate it as your Eruv Tavshilin.
The whole thing to me is a big. I never knew that it's possible that you can do the designation on Yom Tov itself. I have thought that once Yom Tov comes in, you've missed it.
the chiddush is that if lemaisa it was cooked for Shabbos, so then on Yontiv you can. That's what is a big chiddush. Not everybody agrees with that. When we get to Shulchan Aruch, we'll see how we pass it. But that's what's going on here.
But the leftovers from the Yom Tov meal are not good enough for that.
What? Why? Sure it is. Hotir. Mevashel v'im hotir. That's for sure good. Okay? But that's hotir. Here we're talking about cooking on Yom. We're going to continue. We're going to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos based on the fact that I started my cooking for Shabbos on Erev Yom Tov. How did I start it? Because I had food that I cooked for Yom Tov that I didn't need for Yom Tov, and I left it over for Shabbos without designating it. That's going to be the question. But obviously, on Yom Tov, you got to designate it. So you got to pull those beans out and say, oh, you know what? I have these beans. I cooked Erev Yom Tov for Shabbos. I'm going to designate that as the beginning of my Shabbos cooking.
But you're not going to make a bracha on it.
No, I don't think so. I doubt it. Very much doubt it. Okay. Yeah. Uletame also harash mi bunvirk shesover Yom Tov Sheni Atzmo yochol la'arev kamo she'echtav v'sof simin zeh v'sham echtav she'en l'smachal dvarav. In other words, if I didn't make Eruv Tavshilin, Erev Yom Tov, you have a 2-day Yom Tov coming up, right? You have a Thursday, Friday. And I didn't make Eruv Tavshilin on Wednesday. Can I make Eruv Tavshilin on Friday? Because I want to cook on Friday. Okay, can I do that on Friday? And that's not so simple. Again, it's probably because of the kula of Yom Tov Sheni nowadays. Because the Lashon Osa Tavshil sounds like you got to cook something on Wednesday for Shabbos. Because you didn't make the Tavshil for Shabbos. Okay, dafka lo mashmali hachi mi pashta demilsa. Doesn't sound like that from the Gemara. It doesn't sound from the Gemara like relying on those beans as a b'diavad. Elul kachila nami sobchin al adashim shebshulei kadera. Ol shamnunas shenidik basapkin. Shim ein lo be'erev yom tov shum tavshil ela adashim shenisharu b'shulei kadera osa shamnunas shenidbak basakin yochol la'ariv aleim lekachila. It doesn't sound like, oh, I forgot or I didn't have. It also tavshil, but it doesn't have to be cooked specifically for Yom Tov. That if it was cooked before Yom Tov and it's left, you can designate it, and that's how we pass it. Certainly how we pass it. Okay, let's go into all right. The next ubilvad sheyehe bo kizayit shezel shiuro bo ken lecharchila bein besofa bein laachad lechad. You always need a kizayis. Okay. Yeah, so let's see the base Yosef. Okay, again, I think it's written in my it's written in as Od Gimel. Like me, it's written as Od Gimel. Okay. Umashikosav Rabbeinu zeu shiur bein betchilos bein besofa bein laechad bein laelef. Gamze perik beis de beitza. Amar Rebbe Abba, Amar Rav, Eruv Tavshilin tzrichin kizayis bein laechad bein lamea tanan ochlo o she'avad. What happens if I lost my Eruv? So then we said...
Excuse me, I lost where you are. You're in the base Yosef now?
I'm in the base Yosef. It's the letter Gimel. It's at the top of the next page, actually.
I see it. Okay, I got it.
All right. So it says like this. What happens if your Eruv was lost? All right. Now, you made the Eruv on Wednesday, and when Friday came along, you see that the Eruv was... somebody ate up part of the Eruv. So can I use that Eruv now to cook more stuff? Lo yavashel alav betchila. You're not allowed to cook more food. You're allowed to finish what you were cooking, but you can't cook new food if the Eruv is eaten up. Except shiur mimenu kol shehu, somech alav l'shabbos. And what is kol shehu? Lav afagav deleki kazayis. And so no, leis kazayis. Meaning, if the Eruv was eaten up, you still have to have a kazayis left over if you want to be able to rely on it. So there always has to be a kazayis of the Eruv. Tashmat chilos of a sofo ein lo shir. My love ein lo shir klal. Lo ein lo shir lamala. Aval yesh lo shir lamata. I believe it came up in part of the discussion. What was the default that lamala should be no good? Why do I need a chiddush that there's ein lo shir lamala? Why would you think there's a shir lamala? Because if you cook too much food, it's very clear that what you cooked is not for Shabbos. That was your default. That you cooked so much, it's obviously not for Shabbos. And it says, no, however much you cook, that's good enough for the Eruv. Again, probably also because we're dealing here with the Derabona. Upirush Rashi Sofo, Ochlo Osha Avad Veshir Mimenu Ptsas. What does it mean? Bein b'tchila, bein b'sof. B'sof means that in case it got eaten up, you got to make sure there's still a kazayas. Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna skip hay. This has to do with the salted fish and all kinds of things. I don't think it's relevant to us. It's a definition of what's called mevushal, and therefore let's go to Zion. Okay, Zion now is going to be very important. Mitzvah al kol adam le'arev. All right, that every person is supposed to make an eruv. Again, we will get to the question of what happens if I'm not going to cook on Yom. I know that I'm not going to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Do I still have to make an eruv? But clearly the mitzvah is for everybody. What's the finish here? That since it says in the next line, kol gadol ha'ir v'gam mitzvah al kol gadol ha'ir la'arev al kol b'nei iro. So wait a minute. So if the gadol ha'ir has to make an eruv for everybody, and he's mezaka it, and I can be yotze with his eruv, why does everybody have to make their own eruv? The nafkamina, nafkamina means why is this gadol ha'ir making an eruv? Lemishu tarud o shachach. That something you were so involved, you got home from the office 5 minutes before Yom Tov, and there was no way you were able to make the eruv, or you forgot to make the eruv. So then yotze be'eruva shel chavero. Then you can be yotze with the eruv that was mezukah for you. Aval misha efshalo le'arev ve'eno me'arev ela rotze lismoch al eruvo shel gadol ha'ir nikra posheya ve'eno yotzebo. Right, we saw that in the Gemara. The Beis Yosef is going to bring the Gemara. The idea is that b'di'evet, if you were an ones or you forgot, then you can rely on the eruv of the gadol ha'ir, and that's why the gadol ha'ir is supposed to make an eruv. Okay, you remember that from the. This is very much Lamaisa. What?
Regarding this lashon of kol adam, so does that mean? Does that mean my children in the house who were in their teenagers or their early 20s, they're supposed to make their own Eruv Tavshilin and not rely upon me?
That happens to be a very good question, and the answer is that because it turns out Lamaisa that because they are somech al shulchancha, they're yotze with your Eruv.
So what about a person? Let's say Yeshiva Bacher comes to my house for Yom Tov, Shabbos. He's 25 years old. He's coming to my house. He's going to want to maybe do preparations for Shabbos. Is he lechatchil because he's staying in my house? He's rashai to be somech on my Eruv Tavshilin?
Absolutely not, because he's not part of your household.
Right.
That's clear. What's not clear is when your married kids come to you for Yom Tov.
Right. I was thinking of that also.
Good. So we'll get to that. This is already a little bit of a gray area, and it has to. I'll just say where it also relates. If you want to make an eruv for your neighbor, the Rav here is making an eruv for everybody. So there he has to be mezaka the eruv. He has to be mezaka to somebody that can't be yotze with his eruv. He can't be he can't give it over to his 14-year-old kid and say you're going to be zocha for the next door neighbor because the 14-year-old kid is himself part of the eruv.
Right.
Okay, and therefore the question is, if your children come for Yom Tov, maybe you can be mezaka. You can do one eruv and be mezaka them, and then they're yotze, because they're probably not yotze with your eruv. But the solution is you're mezaka somebody for them. Okay, we're going to see this halacha l'maisa when we get a little further up. Okay, but these
just
are
to confirm, Rabbi Karlinsky. So
yeah.
this particular question of whether it's your children or whether it's a yeshiva bacher who comes, so that only apply. Everyone should do it, but it only applies for them if they would be cooking in your kitchen also, which I guess might be the reason why Pinchas and I were surprised. At least I was surprised by that.
Well, okay, so it's not quite so simple. Because do they want to light Shabbos candles on
for example,
Yom Tov for Shabbos? If they're staying at home and they're going back and forth to you, are they allowed to carry what they need for Shabbos while it's still Yom Tov? That needs Eruv Tavshilin.
It's not just bishul.
Carrying it, melachos. Again, a melacha that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov because of ochel nefesh. That melacha can only be done for Yom Tov. Just like you're not allowed to carry on the first day Yom Tov, you're not allowed to bring, it's Yom Tov afternoon, first day afternoon, and you need to have something the next day. You know what? You're coming in the afternoon and you want to have your talis in shul for the next day. You're not allowed to, without Eruv Tavshilin, you're not allowed to carry that talis on Yom Tov for tomorrow. Just like you wouldn't be allowed to carry the Yom Tov. You want to have something in shul for Motzei Yom Tov, right? You want to be at it's Yom Tov, and you want to have something there for Motzei Yom Tov. You're not allowed to carry it on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to carry on Yom Tov to the shul to have it there for Motzei Yom Tov, because that's Meichin from Yom Tov L'chol. And just like you can't cook from Yom Tov to Chol, you can't carry from Yom Tov to Chol.
So Lama said, that means when we all go somewhere this year for Shavuot, we should, as guests in someone's house, say, hey, can I have a piece of matzah and a hard-boiled egg?
Wait. You're spending the whole, wait. You're going to spend the whole Yom Tov Shabbos with them?
Let's say. I mean, we go to another town and we're at someone's house.
We'll see all this, but if you're right, we'll just put it on the table so you'll know what we're looking for. If you are going to spend Yom Tov and Shabbos with another family, right, and you intend to do any malachos on Yom Tov for Shabbos, you need Eruv Tavshilin.
And if I don't plan to, but I know that, let's say, the Baal and Baalat Habayit are going to be cooking on Yom Tov.
Whoa. You don't what? You don't intend to do any malachos?
Right. I mean, probably I'm not going to do any.
Well, you're
anything
you're going to have at least light Shabbos candles, which
my
is
wife, right? Right. Okay, that's a good point.
But let's say, so you ask. I'll tell you what you're asking. What you're asking is, I didn't do Eruv Tavshilin. Can somebody who made Eruv Tavshilin cook for me?
Right.
The answer is yes. They made Eruv Tavshilin. Right. You don't need to have Eruv Tavshilin to eat food that somebody cooked Eruv Tavshilin.
Right. But that's interesting. So this means for candle lighting, Erev Shabbat, we as guests and someone else need to have made Erev Tavshilin.
Okay. So again, we're going to see that in the Mishnah Berurah. When we hold that question when we get to the Mishnah Berurah, I'll explain to you why. Okay. Because the whole issue does. Somebody, let's see. You're not a guest. You're cooking. All your food is completely cooked. You're going to do no cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Do you need to make Erev Tavshilin? So the only question is, do I need Erev Tavshilin to light Shabbos candles or not? And there are opinions that you might not need Erev Tavshilin, but that's all because of a hoil, which is going to get us into a whole other issue, very, very not so paid attention to issue, is that when you light Shabbos candles right before Shabbos, there's no hoil. Right? No, if it's dark outside and you need to light candles, you need the light, but you don't need that light on Yom Tov at all. Right? When you light Shabbos candles, 10 minutes, half hour before Shkia, you're lighting candles that you don't need the light. Okay, so therefore, sure, you're going to need Erev Tavshilin. By the way, that's if you look in the Siddur, in the Lashon of Erev Tavshilin, it says La'adluke Shraga, but it's in parentheses. Because it's a question, do I need Erev Tavshilin to light the Shabbos candles? When we get to the Mishnah Berurah, that's already like Gumei Halacha L'Maisa. Let's hold that off.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. So let's again. Mitzvah kol adam la'ariv v'gam mitzvah kol gadol ha'ir la'ariv al kol b'nei iro. V'nafkamina l'mi shehu tarut. O sheshachach v'lo iriv sheyotze be'eruvo shel chavero. Aval mi she'efshel lo la'ariv ve'eno ma'ariv el sharotze lismoch al eruvo shel gadol ha'ir nafki nikra posheya ve'eno yotze bo. So we're going to see the Beis Yosef, and hopefully the Gemara that he brings is familiar to us because we saw it inside quite in depth. Mitzvah Zion. Mitzvah kol adam la'ariv v'gam mitzvah kol gadol ha'ir la'ariv al kol b'nei ha'ir. Nafkamina l'mishu torah. Sham. Shilchu manos le'ein nachon lo. That's a pasuk. My ein nachon lo. L'misha lo hoya lo laniach eruv tavshilin. Aval misha hoya lo laniach v'lo hiniach posheyahu. Because of Arosh, l'misha lo hoya lo laniach eruv tavshilin kigon shaya tarud me'erev Yom Tov. That's what it means that he couldn't. V'lo hoya lo penai lahaniach. Aval hoya lo penai lahaniach v'lo hiniach posheyahu. Dechol adam chayv laniach eruv tavshilin. Ve'en lo lisboch al gadol ha'ir sheminiach al kol b'nei ha'ir. Kiri amrina lekaman. And here we have the story that we saw. Shmuel me'arev akula nardoi. So Shmuel made an eruv, and then he went and told everybody in Nardoi, you can cook on Yom Tov because I made an eruv for you. Rebbe Ami v'Rebbe Asi ma'arev akula Tveria. Devare kol gedolei ha'ir yesh lo la'arev al kol b'nei iro. V'nafkamina l'misha yatorod v'lo ha'yochol la'arev o sheshachach v'lo irev. Aval l'katchila ein lo l'adam lismoch al eruvo shel godol ha'ir el etzar kol odom la'niach v'veso eruv. V'im nizkar v'lo hiniach eruv u'lekatchila somech al eruv shel godol ha'ir posheyahu. Ve'eno yotze be'eruvo kide amrina lekamon. And now we have the story of the blind person, right? The blind shamus of Shmuel. Hahu samya davi misader masnaisa kamed Shmuel. He always used to chazer his mishnayos in front of Shmuel because he was blind. Yom echad chazir dahavi atziv. One day Shmuel sees that he's depressed. Amar le amay atzivas. Why are you depressed? Amar le delo anche Eruv Tavshilin. I forgot to do an Eruv Tavshilin. Amar le shmoch adidi. No problem. You can cook on Friday for Shabbos based on my Eruv Tavshilin. The Shotach Risa, a different year, not clear whether it was the next year or it was a few years later, not clear in the Rishonim. Chazia dahave atzif. Shmuel again saw the guy's depressed. Amar le amay atzivas. Amar le delo anchi Eruv Tavshilin. Same story. Amar le, now Shmuel says, I'm very sorry, poshea'at. If you forgot again, that means you're not taking Eruv Tavshilin seriously. Therefore, the kulei al mashari ledidach asur ad kan v'kachem divrei Rabbeinu, that we're poskening that a person that could have made an eruv and didn't, he's not yotzi with the eruv of the gadol ha'ir. Aval, let's keep reading. Aval Rashi pirish bi'ahu uvda desamya ledidach asur. Why? She'ein daiti ala mizidim ve'haposhim she'einam charedim ledivrei chacham. Meaning, it's not that you're not allowed to, it's that I didn't have you in mind. And I was medayik from that in theory, the Rav could have these people in mind also. Even though he's not supposed to, he's supposed to punish, it's supposed to have consequences. But what according to Rashi, what it means is Shmuel saying, I don't have in mind poshim. Memela, you're not yotze. It's not that it's automatically you're not yotze. The nearer the time of Mishum, the Shmuel lo hoysa daito ala poshim. Halav hachi, habi mahani gam leposhim. That was the diuk in Rashi. V'chein kasav Rashba b'tshuva. V'zel l'shona. Amar le poshea at l'kulei al mashari l'didach asur. Nearly time shein das hameniach ala poshim. Avalim Amar hameniach beferush shu meniach af al haposhim hu somech la'olam al misheniach. In other words, the Rav Ha'ir nowadays probably realizes that there are people who don't take it so seriously. And therefore, it could be that if he has in mind Eruv Tavshilin for them, then when they cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos, they're not being Mechal Yom Tov. Umiyu. Okay? Umiyu. Mimashe Shapira Sharan. Poshea at. Dikiva Datzivas. Galisa Daitach. She'en Charotze Lismoch B'Shel Acherim. If he knew that there's such a thing as being Somech Al Acherim, why are you depressed? You can rely on somebody else. Meaning, it's not right. Al korchacha demashma deim haisa daito shel Shmuel gam ala poshim, as we're saying, she'enam rotzim lismoch alav. Havi matzi samya lismoch alav. He could have. The blind person could have relied on Shmuel. It's just if he knew that Shmuel's doing an eruv, why was he upset? Must have been he's upset because he didn't want to rely on Shmuel. V'chenim haisa daito shel samya lismoch b'shel acherim hayachol lismoch ala eruva shel Shmuel. Ein lachriach de polig adivrei rarosh. Dahani poshim de daikinen sheim haisa daito shel Shmuel alehem. If Shmuel's das would have been on them, shehem yecholim lismoch alav. Hainu poshim begadol ha'ir. Theinam rotzim lismoch alav. But if they don't want to, so then of course it doesn't work for them. Aval mishu posheh shel lo laniach eruv. Remember the lo mahani k'rechsiv harosh. But again, it could be that if he's intentionally not making an eruv, maybe it doesn't work. Ve'almayda mashma midivrei Rashi yesh lismoa midi amrinan aval haya lo lehaniach v'lo heniach posheahu. So what was the losha? He should have put an eruv and he didn't. He's a poshea. V'amay korle poshea kiven sheyochol lismoch al gadol ha'ir. It was if there is such a thing as relying on the gadol ha'ir. Why is he a poshea? You want to tell me he's not supposed to do it. You want to tell me that the Gadol Ha'ir doesn't have in mind a person who intentionally wants to be Somech al Gadol Ha'ir. I want you to appreciate the Lashon. Let's take the guy. He doesn't want to do an Eruv. He wants to be Somech al Gadol Ha'ir. So we're saying that the Gadol Ha'ir doesn't have him in mind. But why are you calling him a Posheya? He did something wrong. He wanted to be Somech al Gadol Ha'ir. Yishlomer the Hada Yachal Lisbach al Gadol Ha'ir. Hainu b'sha'avar v'lo hiniach, aval lekachila moda Rashi shetzarich kol adam le'eruv v'veiso. Meaning the default is everybody has to do it, and the minute you intentionally don't do it, that by definition makes you a posher. V'im lo ira b'veiso mikri posheya. Afal pishu yachal lisboch al gadol ha'ir. In other words, even when you could rely on the gadol ha'ir, we're still going to call you a posheya because intentionally you didn't make an eruv, and you intentionally relied on gadol ha'ir when you're supposed to do it yourself. That's enough to characterize you as a posheya, because you're allowed to rely on Gadol Ha'ir. You're not supposed to rely on Gadol Ha'ir. You're supposed to do it yourself. So therefore, if you relied on Gadol Ha'ir and didn't do it yourself, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. The Gadol Ha'ir was really there just to help the people who are onus or shachach, but he wasn't there to help the people who intentionally wanted to rely on him. Why not? Because he's supposed to do Eruv himself. L'dat harosh b'diavad nami eno somech al Gadol Ha'ir. In other words, it could be that there is an opinion. Again, here's where the question is, whether the Gadol Ha'ir's das is I am only doing Eruv for people who forgot or were nanas, or I'm doing it for everybody. And that's the question here. So again, we certainly nowadays, everybody's supposed to do it themselves. And if you forgot, and it happens you forget Eruv Tavshilin especially. See, I don't know when you do Eruv Tavshilin, but I remember always, Eruv Tavshilin is always done an hour before Yontif. All right? And we changed our habits. Okay, we now do it at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, why?
No idea.
An hour before Yontif, boy, you got so many other things going on, especially if it's a 3-dayer, right? Or this year, right? If you need an Eruv Tavshilin, it means you're already going to be under a lot of pressure on Eruv Yontif. Okay, and when Lich Benchins at 6 o'clock and it's 5:30 in the afternoon, and you're trying to remember that you're trying to squeeze in the shower and to shave and put up the dude and everything. Oh boy, Eruv Tavshilin could easily be forgotten. So Eitz Tova Kamashmalan is there's no reason why you can't do Eruv Tavshilin in the morning. As we saw, you could even do Eruv Tavshilin on Monday. We could do Eruv Tavshilin on Monday for Yontif. Okay, that's according to the Rosh. Okay, Beseder. Any questions till here?
If someone forgets to eat the Eruv Tavshilin, which happened to us more than once, is that a problem if you had it in mind to use it from the beginning?
That's a good question. What do you think?
I think it's not a problem because you don't always eat all the food that you prepare. So what's the issue?
You started your cooking for Shabbos on Erev Yontif, and you ended up not eating what you started. The minhag is, in fact, there are people who they use a matzah. They take the matzah for all 3 seudos as one of your lechem mishnas, and then they eat it in shalashudas. But because it's a davar shel mitzvah. As they view the matzah as a davar shel mitzvah, and therefore, or the challah, the roll, so it has a higher status. It has a higher status than just stam a piece of challah or stam a piece of matzah, because now it became a chefza shel mitzvah, and therefore they're makbid, and it's a very good idea to take the matzah of Eruv Tavshilin in each lechem mishnah seuda, and then use it for shalosh shudas and actually eat it. Okay, but you don't have to leave it for Shabbat. You realize you don't have to eat it for shalosh shudas, because you got to make sure you didn't eat it before Shabbos, right? And that's because you're cooking on Yontiv. You got to make sure while you're cooking on Yontiv that the Eruv Tavshilin is still intact. But once Shabbos enters, you could eat it on Friday night or Shabbos morning. Yeah,
you have to eat it only at the Suda Shlishis.
I say the minhag is to keep it till Suda Shlishis. Okay, so that you can have it available ki'ilu each su'uda. But the reason they eat it at Suda Shlishis is usually because you don't have a hard-boiled egg Friday night or Shabbos for lunch. Okay, that's okay. But the other aspect is that you want to take that matzah and use the matzah as lechem mishnah for each of the 3 su'udos. So memela, you can only use it as Suda Shlishis. It's only pragmatic. There is no halacha there about having it for Suda Shlishis. Okay.
You can eat up your Eruv Tavshilin on Friday night if you want.
The answer is,
Theoretically.
tell me why not.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me why not. Okay. Again, I don't know people that do, but usually because the thing you use for Eruv Tavshilin is usually shalashudas food. Gefilte fish, hard-boiled egg is usually shalashudas food. But no, if you take a piece of chicken, I mean, our Rav says, we were looking at the sources. I think we saw, maybe I'll read it to you, the idea that they only used, did we read it inside that the only reason they used hard-boiled eggs was because they had no refrigeration? That's where it came from. Did we see that inside or not?
Well, you said that, yeah.
I said it outside, but it's written down. It's written down Lamaisa. Okay, that I don't know. I'll have to check exactly. Do I have the source sheet? No, I don't have it here. I'll find it for next time. Is that the only reason a hard-boiled egg became a minhag is because it needs to last for 3 days and they don't have refrigeration. So therefore, ideally, you want to take a davar chashuv, something that's chashuv, and therefore taking a piece of chicken, a cooked piece of chicken, or a roast beef piece of roast beef, and have that would be better than a hard-boiled egg.
Yeah, I mean, halacha l'maisa, in our house often Shabbos lunch is milchig. So, I mean, I remember that there were years that my wife made a very big, nice lasagna for Shabbos lunch, and that was the tavshil that I made. Eruv Tavshilin along with the matzah.
Very good. Okay, the Seder Gamur. Even though you got to ask the tavshil of noodles, is that like daisa? In other words, do you eat?
No, it's much more. It has cheese in it. It has,
and therefore you would eat it with bread, right?
Yeah, you would eat it with bread. Yeah.
Okay, Seder. All right. Let's see now the next piece in the Beis Yosef. Aval Rashi Pirish. Wait, did I do that just now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just did.
Umiu. Mimasha Pirish Haran. Poshea'at. Remember, Shmuel accused his samya of being a poshe'a. The kiven de atzivas. Oh, did I just do that also?
Yeah.
Okay, I did that. Right. Oh, yeah. Right. The Almai, the fourth line from the bottom. Valmai mashma divrei Rashi. Yesh litmoa midi amrina naval hayalo laniach velo iniach posheu. Amai karlo poshea kiven sheyochel lisbo. I'm sorry, we did that also. Right. Okay. So go to the last line. V'Rabbeinu Yerucham. Acha shekosav divrei harosh. Kosav avamori harav Avram ben Asmael. Kosav umistavra de ha'idna. Is apparently in those cities, the Rav Ayir or the Shliach Tzibur, he made an eruv for everybody. He said up front, I'm making for everybody, and at night in Ma'ariv he was Modi. I made an Eruv Tavshilin for everybody. Muter lismoch alav likatchila v'lohavi posheya. V'zekedivi Rashi v'Arashba. In other words, the Gadol Hayir can certainly have everybody in mind, and if the minhag in the city is to rely on it, so then you're not called a poshea, even though it sounds like there would be some who would say that's not appropriate because of the lashon of a person, osa adam eruv. But apparently in those cities, that right is that in that city, because of that the bnei Masa, that they did it, one person did it for everybody. Because of hakolbo. Hitiru ba'alei horo'a lismoch al eruv afilu misheniach eruv ve'ovad ve'afal pi shegilei daito kisheniach eruvo she'ein belibo lismoch al eruvo ve'ero im yabed eruvo ve'ein be'eruvo sheniach gilui das akan. So this is an important halacha. We mentioned it last time. Okay, we mentioned it in the context of somebody. This was a real case that happened. Is that somebody made Eruv Tavshilin and they come to Shalashudas. And they open up the quote hard-boiled egg, and it turns out to be a raw egg. So it's clear that his Eruv Tavshilin was no good. The question is whether lemafreya he was mevashel miyom tov l'Shabbos or not. So the first reaction is yes, he is. The Gadol Ha'ir made for everybody. But by making Eruv Tavshilin, he indicated that he doesn't want to be included in the Eruv of the Gadol Ha'ir. That was the argument. But here you see not like that. Here you see that b'di'eved, okay, if you lost your Eruv Tavshilin, it says here like this. Now where does it play out here? You made Eruv Tavshilin on Wednesday. Okay, and then on Friday you're coming to start cooking for Shabbos, and boom, the Eruv is gone. Your little kid ate it up. Something happened. There is no Eruv on Friday. Now, what did we say normally? That if you don't have a gezais of the Eruv left, einu mavashel techila, you can't cook. Can I rely on the Eruv of the Rav Ha'ir to cook on Friday if my Eruv got lost? So on the one hand, it goes back to the roeg. On the one hand, by making an Eruv, you indicated you don't want to rely on it. Okay, but it says here you can rely on it. Let's see it inside, because this is very halacha l'maisa. Nowadays, if your Eruv gets lost, according to this shita, you can still cook on Yontif for Shabbos based on the Eruv of the Gadol Ha'ir, even though you didn't intend to rely on it. Let's see this inside. Kosav HaKolbo, very important halacha l'maisa for us. Kosav HaKolbo, hitiru bale hora'a lismoch al Eruv of the Gadol Ha'ir, afilu mi sheheniach Eruv v'ovad. He made an Eruv and then it was lost. So by making an Eruv, he indicates that he doesn't want to rely on the Gadol Ha'ir. Afal pi shegile daito kisheheniach Eruvo she'ein belibo lismoch al Eruv chaveiro. Im yaved Eruvo ve'ein be'eruvo sheheniach gilu. I'm sorry. Im yaved Eruvo. 1 second. What's that? Zion. Do you guys have the Hagos Ve'os at the bottom? If you have it, it's can I look at it? There's a Zion where he after the first line Im Ovad Eruvo Ein Be'eruva Sheniach Gilui Das. That's what it means. In other words, the fact that the Eruv got lost, that doesn't mean that by making an Eruv, you indicated you don't want to be relying on the Eruv of the Gadol Ha'ir. Just because you made the Eruv doesn't mean you don't want to rely on it. It means you don't need to rely on it. Okay? Right? But mikol makom yesh ladat shekol adam daito lismoch al eruv chavero im yavid eruvo. Notice what we're saying is that there's an implicit da'as that if something happens to my eruv, I'm going to rely on somebody else's, on my friend's eruv. Notice, making an eruv yourself is not a declaration that I'm not relying on the eruv. It means I want to make it myself, but implicit in that is if something happens to it, I still want to rely on the Eruv of the Rav Ha'ir. And that's halacha l'maisa how we paskin. That's l'maisa how we paskin is that if your Eruv would get lost, as long as you're in a place where the Rav Ha'ir makes it, and hopefully everyone's in a city that happens, then you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos based on the Eruv of the Rav Ha'ir, even though when you made it, you weren't intending to rely on it, but l'maisa you are allowed to. Question.
Well, we had with the poshea that is not allowed to rely on it. So here, this is better than a poshea. He wasn't a poshea. He made it and he lost it.
Yeah, no, the only reason why not to rely is because by making an Eruv, it's he made a declaration. I am not relying on the Eruv of the Rav Ha'ir. Where do we see that declaration? Because he made his own Eruv. So by making his own Eruv, he's making a statement. I'm not relying on the Rav Ha'ir. So we say no, that's not included in the statement. It's everybody implicitly says I'm making my own Eruv, but I always want the Rav's Eruv to be my backup. That's the implicit statement. That's what the Kolbo is writing. Okay, and we rely on that halacha l'maisa. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we can now go to. Okay. The truth is, Ches is about mostly for the Rav Ha'ir. And we don't need that because you guys are not Rav Ha'irs. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Let's see it inside anyway because it could be that's a little bit related. Your kids are coming to you. Your married kids are coming to you for Yom Tov and Shabbos. So you want to make the Eruv for them. So you need to be mezakeh them, meaning you need to call in a neighbor and be mezakeh them with the Eruv, but you don't have to call up your kids to tell them you're doing it. All you need to do is when they get there on Yom Tov, say, you know what, I did make an Eruv al das for you, and that's good enough. As opposed to the default was that you can only do an Eruv for them if you tell them in advance that you're doing it for them. And we saw in the Gemara that we don't need the das of the person for whom the Eruv is being made. I hope you guys remember that Gemara. We'll see it in the Beis Yosef if you don't. So let's just see Ches Tes. Okay? Kishem ma'arev al acherim. So again, this is really talking to the Rav here, but it could be talking to you if you're having guests coming and staying by you. You have to have das. Who are you making the error for? But the Rav doesn't have to say it. He just has in mind that it's for Kol Bnei Ha'ir. V'chol mishu b'tchum ha'ir yotzebo. All right. Aval osa sheiniach b'shvilo ein tzorich ladas b'shas hanacha. You don't. The person who's who's benefiting from the eruv that you're making for them doesn't have to know it when you're making it. Rak yodi'uhu l'machar b'yom tov kodem shiach lavasho. But he certainly has to know that you made it before he starts cooking. Otherwise, he's cooking. Otherwise, he thinks he's cooking the Isser. Okay, l'tzorach haShabbos. Okay, so let's just see quickly the Beis Yosef on that. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's just quickly run through it to remind us of all the Gemaras. Okay. Pshita das beiniach ba'ina. The Gemara said, of course, I know that I need the das of the person making the eruv, who he's making it for, but I don't need the das of the person for whom the eruv is being made. We saw in the Gemara Shmuel ma'arev akula nardo. Rabbi Ami Ravasi ma'arev akula tveria. How right? But then later he told them later. Okay, again, we talked about Tchum Shabbos is because if they're outside the Tchum Shabbos, they can't come. Okay, and therefore the stama de das is that you only have people who are in the Tchum Shabbos. But as we were medayik, it could be that you could have das, even if you would have das, you could have das by explicitly saying even people who are outside the Tchum Shabbos. Kosovo Rav Magid, B'Shem Rashba, I'm skipping to the next one. Afilu Eruv Tchumin v'yocholovo enos. Okay, that has to do with people who are included or not included. Okay. Tess. Yeah, that we saw that. Mashakosov, I'm in Tess. Aval Mashakosov, Aval also Shinech B'Shvilo Ein Tzorich Ladat B'Shas Hanacha Adol El Kai B'Achi Komer Kisheme'arev Al Acherim Tzorich, he, the guy who's doing the Eruv, has to yechaven bedaito al oso sherotz la'arev b'shvilo. If you're doing it for your kids, you have to have in mind that you're doing it for your kids. Aval oso sheiniach b'shvilo, but your kids ain't tzarich ladat b'shas hanacha. They don't have to know when you're doing it that you did it. It could be very common if you do it at 10 o'clock in the morning and your kids are coming at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right? So you're doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning for them. You're only going to tell them later. And that's okay. It was a question. There was a question. Maybe I can't do an error for somebody else unless I tell him I'm doing it for him. He has to know that I'm doing it for him. So he said no. The proof was, right? Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi called Mishalo Iniach Eruv Tavshilin Yavo v'Yismoch al Shali. If he's being machriz, that means until he was machriz, they didn't know it. So therefore, you see that they don't have to know it when you put it. They only have to know before they start cooking. Kosav Aran, we'll do this last piece. Kosav Aran, the Shmuel, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yasi, the Havu Ma'arve Akula Mosa, the Lo having machriz. Whoa! So nobody knew. Mashma shemitoch shahayu regilim mikach. In other words, they did it every year, and everybody knew without being told that Shmuel's doing it. I.e., you have a Rav Ha'ir, okay, right? Toronto, Passaic, okay. There's a Rav Ha'ir. We know every year the Rav Ha'ir. There are a few Rabbanim, actually, a few Rabbanei Ha'ir. They do it for the whole year. We know it, so they don't have to announce it afterwards because it's already known that they're doing it. Okay, in tzarich la'achris. El somchin alav min astam. Aval misha ein darko laniach Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi tzarich la'achris. But somebody who is doing it in a way that they don't normally do it, you have to tell the people that you're doing it for them. Okay, they don't have to know it at the time, but they have to know it before they start cooking. But if it's something that's done every year and everybody knows that they're doing it, so then they don't have to make any announcement. Question? Any questions? Okay, so we're going to stop here and pick it up on Yud. Okay, we may not do Yud. Yud has to do with, you know what, since many of you do have your kids coming to you for Yontif, or you might go somewhere. So we probably should do exactly how you do an Eruv for somebody else. Okay, so we will pick it up at Yud next on what is today is Wednesday. Right? Well, I said you should know, guy. I think I told you, right? Sunday and Wednesday for me are the same. Okay, this is my Chabura day. This is my 6 to 7 every Sunday, Wednesday, and I never remember whether I'm in a Sunday or I'm in a Wednesday. Okay, the Seder Gamur.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeshkach, Todah Rabbi, have a good Shabbos.
Well, do everybody.
Shabbos.
Good.
Thank you very much.